I guess. You know, I was born in Buffalo. My dad was owned skating rinks and owned bars. And he was a very insecure guy, and he was an alcoholic. He used to get women for favors. So my dad, I'm not saying he was a pimp. I always say he's a pimp because that's how I look at it. My mom said the proper way to say this is that your dad used to get women, and he would exchange women for favors. So there you go.
That's pretty much a pimp.
He was a pimp, right? He was a fucking pimp. So basically, that was my dad. He was a guy that didn't care much about anything but himself.
But he was kind of a baller in your community,
a big baller.
Right?
Knew O.J. Simpson big time, knew all the Buffalo Bills. Him and Rick James were best friends.
Wow.
So we had two different sides. It was the side that everybody saw, which was the side of, this man, your dad is so damn cool, man. He's awesome. And we lived on Paradise Road. The second that door was shut in that house, it was game on. The real him would come out. It was a perfect Jekyll and Hyde. So when you're born into that at a young kid and like you're getting beat for no reason, I'm not, whippings are whippings, man. Yeah. But this guy would beat you for no reason, just because he was drunk, just because he saw you, whatever.
It's like kind of like an Ike Turner character.
Ike Turner probably on steroids.
Right.
So that's who he was. And he was a perfect person for psychological warfare. The beatings were horrible, but the mind torture was the worst. Mm-hmm. He got so deep in my head as a young kid, and that really fucks up your foundation. You know, when you're born, man, there's some sensitive years in there, man, where your brain starts to develop and starts to give you self-esteem, courage, confidence, all those things. And my dad was stripping that away from everybody. And when you see your mom, the worst thing to do is when you see your mom getting beat senseless at a young kid. Mm-hmm. That shit scars you permanently.
I mean, she was like a prisoner.
She was a prisoner.
Guy. And what you guys had to do to escape and get away from him is like insane.
So she was 19 when she went there, and she was an innocent 19-year-old, and she came from a great family, and she met this man, and totally just it was brutal. It was very sadistic the way she was tortured by him, and the way my brother and myself were, and that broke me and my brother up. My brother loved my father a lot. He saw something very different than I saw, because whenever my mom and I would get beat, my brother, I'm not calling him a coward by any means, he handled it very different than I did. He would go in his room. He didn't want to see the beatings. I would protect my mother. So in that, I saw a lot more of the violence. I was trying to protect her, and me trying to protect her, I really got beat. Mm-hmm. So when you're constantly in that battle, in that struggle, and your brother's going in a different room because he didn't want any part of this shit. He hated it, and he loved family. You know, he loves family. And I became the person like, hey, man, I'm not about it.
And you had to shoulder the responsibility, this idea within you that you were responsible for making sure that your mom would be safe.
And that was hard for an 8-year-old kid, because when we moved to that small town of Brazil, Indiana, I had a learning disability. I was stuttering. I was battling so much shit that I never even told my mom about, because she was battling her own demons. Right. So at 8 years old, I'm looking for comfort, and I'm like, hey, don't bother your mom with shit. You were not the man of the house. And I started becoming real protective of my mother at a young age. So whatever you're going through, man, you're on your fucking own. You're not gonna tell your mom shit. And she ended up finding out later through the school systems and through me failing and through me, all these issues I went through. She found out a lot, but I kept as much as I could from her, man. And that really was a hard task for me to raise yourself mentally when you're already in the deepest, darkest dungeon of all time. And I think that's where I started really creating myself. I had to really start creating a certain pattern, a certain process, a certain kind of indestructible toolbox to handle my life.